The notification lit up my phone at 11:47 p.m. on a Thursday night, and my heart stopped. There, staring back at me from my dating app screen, was Mrs. Elena Richardson, my high school English teacher from 5 years ago, the woman who had once told me I had the soul of a poet trapped in the body of a boy too afraid to speak. The same woman who had written a college recommendation letter that changed my life. The same woman whose wedding ring I used to notice catching the morning light as she wrote literary quotes on the chalkboard. Except now, in this photo, there was no ring. Just her gentle smile, older somehow, sadder around the edges, and a bio that read, starting over at 38. Looking for genuine connection. Teacher by day, hopeless romantic always. I sat frozen in my studio apartment, my finger hovering over her profile picture, my mind racing through 1,000 thoughts at once. This was impossible. This was mortifying. This was the universe playing the cruelest joke imaginable. I was 23 now, working as a junior copywriter at an advertising agency, finally building something resembling an adult life, and suddenly the woman who had shaped my teenage years was right there in my dating queue, vulnerable and human in a way I had never imagined her to be. If you believe in second chances, in the unexpected ways life brings people together, in stories that remind us we're all just humans trying to find our way, please hit that like button, leave a comment below, share this video with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to this channel. Your support means everything, and it helps us bring more real stories to light. The match had been an accident on my part. I had been mindlessly swiping after a long day at work, barely looking at profiles, my mind numb from revising marketing copy for hours. But now I couldn't unmatch. I couldn't pretend I hadn't seen her. And somewhere in the chaos of my panic, I felt something else stirring. Curiosity, concern, and the echo of an old admiration I thought I had outgrown. I remembered Mrs. Richardson as untouchable, elegant in her simple cardigans and pearl earrings, always carrying herself, with a grace that seemed to exist outside our chaotic teenage world. She had been the only teacher who really saw me during my junior year when my parents were divorcing, and I was failing every class except hers. She had stayed after school twice a week to help me catch up, not just in English but in life. She never asked invasive questions, never made me feel broken or pitied. She just sat with me in her classroom while the janitors cleaned the hallways, and we talked about books, about characters who survived impossible things, about how writing could be a way to make sense of chaos. Now, looking at her profile, I saw glimpses of a life I knew nothing about, photos of her hiking alone, sitting at a cafe with a book, standing on a beach at sunset with her arms wrapped around herself. Her bio mentioned loving old movies, cooking elaborate meals for one, and recently learning that starting over was harder than she had imagined. There was a rawness to it that made my chest tight. I didn't sleep that night. I kept returning to my phone, reading her profile over and over, trying to reconcile this vulnerable woman with the composed teacher I remembered. By morning, I had made a decision that felt both absolutely right and completely insane. I messaged her. Mrs. Richardson, it's Alex Morrison from your 2017 junior English class. I know this is probably the strangest message you've ever received on this app, and I'm not reaching out for any weird reason. I just saw your profile and couldn't help but remember how much you helped me during one of the hardest years of my life. I wanted you to know that your kindness mattered more than you probably realized. I hope you're doing okay, and I hope you find whatever you're looking for. I hit send before I could overthink it, then immediately wanted to throw my phone into the nearest body of water. 3 hours passed, then 5. I went to work, sat through meetings I couldn't focus on, and checked my phone approximately every 45 seconds. By lunchtime, I had convinced myself she had blocked me and reported me to some authority figure who handles inappropriate former student contact. Then, at 2:18 p.m., she responded, Alex, I cannot tell you how much your message means to me right now. I remember you very clearly. The quiet student who wrote that stunning essay about invisible scars that I still think about sometimes. I'm doing the best I can, which some days feels like enough and other days doesn't. Thank you for your kindness in recognizing an uncomfortable situation with such grace. If you ever want to grab coffee as two adults navigating this strange world, I'd like that. No pressure. Just an offer. That coffee happened 3 days later at a small cafe downtown, and I arrived 15 minutes early, my hands shaking as I ordered a latte I wouldn't drink. When she walked in, I almost didn't recognize her. She looked smaller somehow, more human, wearing jeans and a simple blue sweater instead of the professional attire I remembered. Her eyes found mine across the room, and we both laughed at the absurdity of it all, the tension breaking like ice cracking on a warming river. We talked for 3 hours. She told me about her divorce that had been finalized 6 months ago, about discovering her ex-husband had been having an affair for 2 years, about the strange grief of losing not just a marriage, but the entire future she had imagined. She talked about the loneliness of being a divorced woman in a small teaching community, about downloading the dating app in a moment of desperate courage after her therapist encouraged her to try meeting new people. She apologized for how pathetic it must seem, matching with a former student, and I stopped her immediately. I told her about my own struggles, the anxiety that had followed me into adulthood, the relationships that had failed because I didn't know how to let people in, the way I still sometimes pulled out her old comments on my essays when I needed to remember that someone had once believed I was capable of something meaningful. I told her she wasn't pathetic. She was human. She was real. And that was more valuable than any performance of having it all together. We didn't date. Not then, not ever in a romantic way. But we became something else, something I didn't have a word for. We became friends who met for coffee every Sunday morning, who texted each other articles and book recommendations, who showed up for each other in the small ways that actually matter. She came to the reading when I finally got a piece published in a literary magazine. I helped her move into a new apartment when she decided to start fresh somewhere her ex-husband's. Memory didn't haunt every corner. Over the next year, I watched Elena, as she insisted I call her now, slowly rebuild herself. She started painting, something she had given up years ago. She traveled to Spain by herself and sent me photos of Granada at sunrise. She laughed more easily, smiled without that sadness hiding in the corners, and through her transformation, I found myself changing too. I started writing seriously again, not just advertising copy, but real stories, real thoughts. I went to therapy. I let people in. If this story has touched your heart in any way, if you've felt the power of human connection in unexpected places, please don't just watch and leave. Hit that like button, drop a comment telling me about a time someone showed up for you when you needed it most. Share this video with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe so you never miss stories that remind us we're all in this together. Your engagement truly keeps these stories alive. The irony wasn't lost on either of us, that a dating app had brought us together in a way that had nothing to do with dating. Elena once told me during one of our Sunday coffees that she believed the universe worked in strange ways, that sometimes we find what we need when we're looking for something else entirely. She had been looking for romance and found friendship. I had been mindlessly swiping and found a reminder that the people who save us once might need saving themselves someday. Now, 2 years after that initial match, Elena is engaged to a kind man she met at a teacher's conference, someone who makes her laugh and values her intelligence and treats her like the remarkable person she is. And I'm in a healthy relationship for the first time in my life, with someone who actually knows me, flaws and all, because Elena taught me by example what it looks like to show up authentically. We still meet for coffee every Sunday when we can. We still text each other random thoughts and bad jokes. And sometimes, when the conversation gets quiet, we marvel at the strangeness of it all. How an awkward late-night swipe, a moment of accidental connection, became one of the most important relationships in both our lives. Comment unexpected connections if you believe the universe sometimes brings people together in the most surprising ways for reasons that have nothing to do with what we think we're looking for. Because the truth is, we're all searching for something, connection, understanding, someone who sees us. And sometimes we find it in the last place we'd ever expect, from the last person we ever imagined, in a moment that starts with embarrassment and transforms into grace. Elena wasn't supposed to be on that app. I wasn't supposed to match with her. We weren't supposed to become what we became, but we did. And both of our lives are immeasurably richer because of an accident that turned out to be exactly what we both needed. Sometimes the most important relationships in our lives don't look anything like we thought they would. Sometimes they look like a former teacher and student, meeting as equals, saving each other in ways neither expected, all because of one random Thursday night and the courage to see possibility in impossibility.